Hi, everyone. This is Neha from College Shortcuts. I hope everyone's having a good day. Today, I've got one of my favorite students on, Jay, who just found out she got into her number one choice in the last week. So I wanted to quickly reach out to her and see if she'd be open to chatting with us. So, Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Congratulations on getting in. I know that was exciting. Can you share with everyone, when you found out what it was like and tell us, just because I love to hear what it feels like in that moment?
Yeah, so I got accepted into Penn's Vagelos program in the molecular life sciences. And I actually opened my decision with my friend from my school, and we opened it together over the phone. And it was very exciting because we both got in and we screamed at the same time.
Oh my
So,
God, that's so
yeah.
exciting. So you're going to Penn this upcoming school year.
hmm
Awesome.
Yes.
And why were you interested in that program in particular?
I've always been a researcher, and specifically this program, this Vagelos Scholars Program, has a very strong emphasis on research and on emerging scientists because it has a very profound focus on the chemistry and the physics underlying molecular biology. So, a very profound focus on biochemistry, which is something that I've always loved since I was a freshman, even before that.
That's
So,
amazing. And, I was reading it and, I just want to let everyone know there's only 50 students that are accepted into this program. So, Jay, you should be super proud of yourself for getting into
ecstatic.
a super competitive program. I mean, tell me, how did your parents feel? I know I've been texting with your mom a bit as well,
Mhm.
but how did
So
she feel?
I opened my decision by myself. So my parents were in the basement waiting for me. And I I walked in and I acted like I'd been rejected, and the expression on my mom's face was just like, she was pale and she was so scared. But when I did tell her, I think she was even happier, more happy than me, because she'd seen that, all this work had paid off.
Totally.
So,
Oh my God, I'm so glad. I'm like in tears just listening because I know how hard it's been for you to wait,
yeah.
to hear back.
It's Yes. It's the weight that's harder than the work. It's because you put in all that effort and you did your best, but then comes a point where you just can't do anything more and it's just a waiting game. So,
Totally. So let's talk about doing your best. I know that so many families are curious about us and curious about how College Shortcuts works. And I want to talk about, of course, we know the power of starting early, getting a mentor
mhm.
early on, learning all the things you can do to build up your resume, and then to package yourself well. What I want to talk about today is, obviously you said you're interested in research and sciences, which are
Mhm.
more technical fields, right? Like
Yeah.
versus if you had said, I've been writing a lot and I'm a writer and
Mhm.
philosopher, which means the essays would come super easier to someone who
Yeah.
has that skill set or that's their focus. So let's say, we're talking with families that, are more technical and, like your parents are in the medical fields as well and working in that field. Can you tell everyone a little bit about your experience in the college admissions process?
I think that so both of my parents did not go to college in the United States. So going in, I was completely blind. I didn't know what forms to fill out. There were a bazillion forms for financial aid. Didn't know the right application, common versus coalition versus the school itself. So there was a lot of confusion surrounding the whole process. But unfortunately, I had somebody to tell me, okay, well, this is what you need to do, and this is the next step, and this is what you're going to end up with. So I was expecting, um, after filling out the forms, and there was just the ambiguity of the process, and the vagueness went away. It
Yeah,
seemed
let's talk about that. So you said your parents
okay.
didn't go to college here. Can you
No.
give a little background about your parents? I know your mom said your dad is super involved in the community and he's a
hmm
leader, which I love to hear. My dad was a leader as well. So
Uh-huh.
can you talk about your parents a little bit so they can get a sense of, your family background?
So, mom is in the healthcare field, and began her PhD but never finished it. Dad's in software, also in healthcare, but in software. And in general, both of my parents are very prominent leaders in our Sikh community. Um, whether it be volunteering or especially during this time, the pandemic, just cleaning the whole temple, going on shopping sprees, finding bleach. So kind of organizing events, and they play a very central role in our community.
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously those values transferred into you, would you say?
Yes, I would say that. I've learned from the best.
Yeah, same. So what I'd love to know is, when it came to your applications itself, and let's talk about obviously the Penn application too,
Mhm.
one of the things, maybe you can talk a little bit about, the essay experience that you had with us.
Mhm.
Obviously we've built your college list and did everything else, but let's talk about, because now the admissions process is going to weigh more on the essays. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people feel like they can probably do this on their own, or
Mhm.
maybe someone can edit it online, even though the counselor is going to be less available. Can you talk a little bit about, just what we did with you and what your essays were about before, in your mind, versus when you worked with us on that editing process?
I think that before working with you guys, I'd done all these amazing things, but I didn't know how to connect them. I couldn't find a common line of thread. And it was hard for me to put everything good about me into one whole paragraph
Mhm.
because it seemed hard that, like, none of this, it didn't make sense, I guess, to me at that time. But during the process and working with my mentor, she really taught me how there was a common theme to what I was doing, and she helped me find my line of thread.
Absolutely. And, when it came to writing, we see a lot of students suffer
Yeah.
trying to write their essays. Would you say that, one of the things I get made fun of all the time is that we're called college shortcuts, which is a name I love because I truly
Uh-huh.
believe if you're willing to do all the hard work, and you have the right coach in place, it can be a shortcut. Can you explain to people how we're the shortcut when it comes to the editing process and figuring out what to write?
When it came down to, I guess, taking the shortcut way, it was really about starting with the right ideas and not starting from, I wouldn't like, I guess saying completely from scratch is a bad term to use, but in a sense, like molding an idea to an essay and making it fit like a puzzle perfectly. Um, so shortcuts in the sense that we were editing and we were adding ideas at the same time. So what like a normal essay that I would edit by myself, it would take about 3 to 4 days. When I was working with my mentor, she it was another set of eyes. She was a little bit older than me, so she would relate to what I was writing, which I found was a very important aspect of this whole experience. And since she could relate, she could provide me with strong advice on if there were any gaps in my line of reasoning or if the language seemed off. So that was something that I appreciated a lot.
Absolutely. I'm all about having a relatable mentor.
Hmm.
So many parents will ask, why does your team feel so young? From a teenager's perspective, can you talk a little bit about how that was for you to have someone closer to your age versus if I provided you someone closer to their 40s, 50s, or 60s in this
Hmm.
process?
My mentor was a graduate student, and I think that was great because she would relate to my life, and I think that that's how we bonded initially. And to work together, you really need to overcome I like boundaries, or you need to become familiar with one another. And some of the stuff that she would talk about, I could relate to, and whatever I was writing in my essays, she could fully understand. It didn't require any further explanation because she'd been through the same process. We were about the same, or I guess the same generation, and she could understand me really well. So she knew what I was trying to say, even if it wasn't explicit in my essays.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your passion. What are you passionate about, Jay? What's your interests?
So I am very passionate about bridging translational medicine, which is basically a very complicated way of um, saying, basically connecting the lab bench to the doctor's office. So, and I guess this COVID-19 pandemic is a great example. because new vaccines, new therapies will be developed in the future, hopefully. But the issue is, well, whether these vaccines and these latest technologies will be transferred over from the laboratories to the patient's offices, whether they will be made accessible to the masses. And I think that's what public health care is all about. So going into the future, my aspirations are to become an MD PhD so I can work on translational medicine, be
Wow.
both people.
I can't wait to follow you on that journey. It's going to be amazing. And so you've obviously done a lot of great work. Do you mind sharing? I know a lot of students are probably curious, like, what is your academic background? Were you getting A's, B's, C's, D's? Like, what type of student were you in terms of just an academic aspect?
I've always been an A student, mostly A pluses, but A's. I got a 35 on my first shot on the ACT. I was researching as a freshman in high school, and I've been involved in Science Olympiad. Um, we are a state qualified team. We always rank top 5 in the state. It's a very competitive state, so we're very proud of that.
Mhm.
And a lot of my time outside of school goes to volunteering.
Wonderful. So it's really clear that obviously you have what it takes to go to a school like Penn and so many
Mhm.
others. So many students like you typically think, well, I have these great grades, I have a great score, and, I've done great things. Why would I need a consultant to help me with this?
I think that I personally needed a consultant because I couldn't figure out how to connect everything. Like I wanted to do biochemistry, and I had this idea of uh, bridging translational medicine in the back of my mind, but I wanted to make it crystal clear that that was my motivation behind all of the work that I'd done throughout high school and even before that. And I needed somebody who could approach it from a different angle, and could understand me and could help me put together myself as a perfect package so I didn't seem out of place or too scattered.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to describe it is you've done a lot of great things, but if
Hmm.
it's not organized in, the
Yeah.
best way, it's really hard. I know that, even with our resume,
Hmm.
which is a resume template that I stand by, and a lot of students will use it way later on. I mean, can you speak to just that experience of getting your resume formatted in the right way?
I think that before I was working with college shortcuts, my resume was very scattered. It wasn't perfectly organized, and usually these college admissions officers don't spend, I would say, more than a couple of minutes looking at your application. So they
Right.
want to see the big things right away. And the issue that I had with my resume before working with college shortcuts was that it wasn't clear, and the details weren't in the right place. And if you saw it, you wouldn't. It wasn't a good representation of me. But after working with the template, I was able to format all the work that I'd done. And even looking at my resume, you could see that whatever I was doing had a common
Theme.
motive behind it. Yeah.
It always does. And I think that's the thing that most students don't realize is they do all these great things, but they don't talk with someone to figure out, okay, what are going to be the stories that are going to
Yeah.
make you stand out. So let's talk
Hmm.
about the story a little bit. Do you remember, when I know it wasn't too long ago, but do you remember your main essay you worked on with us? And do you mind sharing a little bit about the story that you talked about during that essay?
Yeah, so I worked with, going back to the idea of translational medicine, I think that was a very profound, that was an idea that we molded and we worked with over and over again. And it really began with my inspiration of a close family member's misdiagnosis, which later turned out to be a devastating disease, a devastating cancer. And I think that that was my initial inspiration that really introduced me to the idea of translational medicine, because this misdiagnosis that my family member had had was because the doctor didn't have access to these latest technologies that she could use to diagnose my close family member. So that was how it began, and that's how I guess the idea settled into my mind. And I told myself, well, okay, this happened, this misdiagnosis happened because my doctor didn't have the right access, but it could in a more developed country like the United States. It's because of the biases, and it's because doctors, even though they have access to these latest technologies, are subject to provider bias. They maybe it's a hidden race bias, and that whole concept. So I learned how to connect the concept of intersectionality with the concept of translational medicine, and I weaved the both ideas together, and I conveyed that I wanted to bridge translational medicine, but also study translational medicine through this bias, I guess, lens known
Yeah.
as intersectionality.
So as you're talking, you're using a lot of technical terms, would you say?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I would say that.
Which is awesome, because that is the beauty of who you are and why you're going to be an incredible human at that sort of stuff, right? Because
Mhm.
that is not a language I speak. I speak elaboration, flowery words, emotion, vulnerability, and
Mhm.
story. That's why
Yeah.
I'm so successful at what I do. So here's my question to you. When you talked about your family member, like, I'm sure everyone that's listening and
Mhm.
myself, like, we felt it like right here immediately. When you were working on your essay with us, did you go deeper than you would have expected into that story than if you had just gone into the technical route on your own?
I think I am a very technical person, and I think that's an issue that I've been working on. And before working with you guys, my all of my writing, it had no emotion in it, and the passion that I added, in a sense, my mentor um, introduced me to adding emotions, and after that, that became my writing style. I learned how to add passion and all the other fuzzy emotions into my writing, because I understood that technical is not for everybody, and it's much easier to relate to if something is passionate and emotional.
Especially in this context,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
there's no question that your technical ability is going to be your superpower
Hmm.
when you're in that field. But when it
Yeah.
comes into the context of understanding who you are,
Hmm.
you're so much more than just the technical stuff,
Exactly.
right? So I would say that's a huge thing for parents that are technical trying to edit, right?
Hmm.
I think, right? Like, I mean, what
Yeah.
you say?
My so my mom is also very technical because she was doing her PhD, um, but I think the compassionate part, like on paper, a robot could write a technical essay, but it's really the compassion um, and the care you put into the right choice of words that shows that this was written by an actual unique person who cares and who is driven enough to do something like in this field in the future. And I think the emotional side is what makes all of us seniors, the juniors right now, unique. It's how admissions officers will, I guess, see the human part of us just on paper.
Absolutely. I mean, if you watch anything or read anything, right? And it's interesting. I'm currently developing a report that's highly technical with data, and it's taking a
Hmm.
lot out of me to take my emotion out and just give the facts.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not something for me to connect deeply with my audience. When you connect with another human, or you want someone to get to know you, you don't start and walk up and say, "Hi, my name is Jay. I make all A pluses and A's, made a 35 on my ACT. Here are all the research opportunities that I've taken as well,"
Hmm.
and then stop. Because that's just reading of a resume. That's not
Yeah.
that you can read a resume, right? Like, tell
Hmm.
me, wouldn't you say the story of your family member is, honestly, I mean, it's the why.
It's the why behind everything that I do. It's what drives me and will keep on driving me in the future. And it's what makes me unique. The specific scenario, how I connected with the issue.
Absolutely. I mean, when people ask me, why did I create College Shortcuts, like, where does it come out
Hmm.
of? It comes out of pain. I mean, I was a student
Yeah.
like you that was stressed to the max, didn't know how to ask for help.
Hmm.
I had parents who didn't understand the process, were super smart, super technical. I had a big ego around the stuff I had done and was like, I can do this myself. And I also didn't get along with my parents when I was younger. Like, yeah, I know some kids do, but like, I just didn't. So I thought, okay, what if I was able to create something that could help these kids that are smart and high achievers that want to go into places like Penn, and get in and then get to jumpstart their life, but have someone along the way. I mean, Jay, would you say that high school is not exactly the easiest thing in the world compared to like elementary or middle school? There was definitely a shift for you.
I think that I wasn't expecting, definitely not. I think junior year is when it hits. And I know for a couple of my friends it was sophomore year, but junior year is when it hits like, I'm going to college in 2 years. And if I want to get into a good place, I need to pursue my passions and really figure out who I am. And not in a forceful way, but just in a I guess it's a journey of self-discovery. Like I've grown a lot just by applying to colleges.
Exactly. And I mean, I think one of the big things that I love that for me is like, as someone who runs this company, but also like to hear that you've learned the power of sharing emotionally. I'm a
Mhm,
big fan of Brene Brown's work about vulnerability and how it takes courage to be
mhm.
emotional. And I think it's that skill, that soft skill, of being able to connect is going to matter so much in your life,
Yeah, it
not
will.
just the technical stuff.
Mhm.
And so I feel like that to me that's priceless. If my team can teach you the power of not only how to market yourself or present yourself, but also to have that ability to connect with yourself emotionally and connect with others, you're going to be 10 times more powerful at anything that
Yeah.
you do.
Mhm.
Let's talk about, some of your friends that may be super technical that may not have used college shortcuts. Did you see any kids that were stressed out about the essays and getting all this stuff done while you were, working with us?
I did. I actually had a close friend who applied to all of the Ivies and actually wrote the essays day of when the applications were due. It was not a fun time. It was a very stressful time. She did not it did not go well. And it's just like kids my age, we're procrastinators. And we're never going to learn until we come across some kind of issue and problem. But using college shortcuts, I was able to manage my time well, so I wasn't stressed out for the time aspect of it. I
Totally.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, because I tell people, I was like, look, we survey people. Like 99.9% of students and parents will say, my stress went from here to here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, since you are technical, let's
Hmm.
talk about our software. So a lot of people don't know that, we have a software where people can build their list, pull out data reports about each college, do a comparison, hold everything in one place. You talked about there being all sorts of different pages.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about the inside on the technical side for families that are wondering, like, cool, there's a lot of emotion in writing and that's amazing and totally need that. But let's talk about that other side, because I'm both technical and I'm both soft and hard in that way. So I built this company to have both. So can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about your experience with that software? Was it hard for you to use? Was it easy? Did you like it?
I think it was very easy to use. It was very straightforward. Usually online, since I mean, I don't think the prompts for next year are changing, but when going in during my process, like the prompts are changing so much, or even like slight changes. Like I know for Penn, they made it 2 essays this year, and it was one before. And I think that using that software, I was able to find the right prompts very easily, and the software also had a personalized acceptance calculator, which I
Yep.
had fun using.
Oh, I'm
So,
sure, right? Isn't it so fun?
yeah, it
I
is.
mean, that's my Friday night.
Figuring out.
Yeah, see how many greens, yellows, and reds.
Mhm.
So that's awesome that you love that. So what I want to do is ask you any last questions around, some of our students are saying, Neha, I don't know what it takes to stand out.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice to share about how we helped you to stand out? To be very honest, I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that, being South Asian or of Asian descent can be harder in admissions, right? Like we can probably be clear
Yes.
about that,
Yeah. Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it was. I grew up in India until I was in sixth grade. So even coming here in the sixth grade and starting the process, I already felt like everybody was ahead in the game, and I thought I was way behind. I didn't know if I was doing enough, and I was sharing some of the same concerns um, that my fellow peers have, or people who are 1 year younger than me. But I think the way that I stood out during this process was really the emotional side of me. Like I was able to show the technical side, but I was also able to show the emotional side and blend them together. And I think that's what I was having trouble with. Um, I couldn't figure out how to put them two together because they seem so different. But it was through this process that I realized that I could use my emotional motives to back up my technical aspirations.
Absolutely. I love that. So yeah, I would say that is a very big thing, is about figuring out like what your unique angle is going to be to get in,
Yeah. hmm
right?
And it's just pursuing your passion and just truly being passionate about what you do and not doing something just for doing it for college.
Totally. I'm a
So,
big believer in that. That's why with our mentorship program, we've switched everyone to doing amazing things online, building themselves online in different ways. Because there's so many ways to utilize this time. I mean, Jay, I know
yeah.
you're doing some great things during this time, and
Mhm.
would you be open to sharing that? Because I think, a lot of people don't realize that, I mean, I look at you and you're like that next generation of leaders underneath me, right? So I look at it and I say, hey, this is something everyone can learn from, is that there are
Mhm.
leaders in every generation that are here. So can you talk about some of the amazing things that you're doing? And I know we've now both been on the news.
Yeah.
I was just
Yes.
on ABC earlier today and yesterday CBS. So
Mhm.
definitely, can you share a little bit about some of the things you're doing?
Yeah. So sitting at home and like just watching the news was kind of driving me crazy, and I can imagine that it was driving other kids crazy too. I mean, my brother, he's in sixth grade, and he was so bored, and I think watching the news, it just made me feel guilty because I knew I could be doing something. So I decided to start up this relief squad, the Corona Relief Squad, to deliver groceries for the elderly and other high risk populations living in the community around me. So it started as a Facebook page, which eventually gained 20,000 views in over 4 days. Um, and we're still delivering, slowing down a little bit though, because of the precautions. We have to be precautionary. Um, but we've done about 75 deliveries to families around our area.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I think first of all, 20,000 views, girl. That's pretty great in 4
We
days.
didn't expect it.
And
We didn't
then you
expect
were
it.
featured on what exactly? Your mom was telling me you were featured on the news too.
Yeah, I was featured on CBS. I was featured
Oh,
on the Delco Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer.
okay. And let me just make this very clear. Jay, you already got into college. This is not something you
Yes.
did to
No.
get into college. This is something you did because you're just a badass leader, right?
Yes. No, this was not for college. I mean, the application, I started it. Yeah,
This is not for
this was
that.
after.
And I want to make it clear that, like you were saying earlier, people should do things because they feel like it feels good. We are in a time where you need to make decisions around what is it you're passionate about. I mean,
Mhm.
if anything, have you felt like it's more important more than ever before that you find your passion now, even at a younger age than later on in life?
I think I'm a firm believer in planning and keeping myself organized. And I think that reduces anxiety and stress by so much. And just having direction streamlines you. Instead of, poking out into the dark, you know where you're going. And then you can extend your boundaries a little bit and go above and beyond. So
Exactly.
just
And that's
knowing the
exactly,
way. So,
it's so true. That's why, even with our mentorship program where we start in middle school all the way through high school, it's
mhm,
about helping students year after year build out what they want to do, figure out their passions, and go from there. So I'm a big
mhm,
believer in that.
yeah.
Do you have any last words that you want to share for, families that aren't sure about college shortcuts, or families that want to know more about, what the difference is when you were doing it solo versus working with us. Or if you want to speak to that 11th grader that's sitting there feeling, wow, like if tests are optional, GPA might be different, schools are closed. Now all I have left is my essays and my resume. Can you talk about to that child and that student just a year younger than you and let them know the power of getting a mentor during this time?
I think that right now is a very stressful time, and I can't imagine what other, like, I'm sure that people are stressed out, but right now you could be approaching everything from a different perspective. Like for me, I'm a lab kid, and I decided to do this Corona Relief Squad through a more public healthcare perspective. I'm still in the medical field, but I changed my perspective and how I approached things, and I was definitely able to pursue my passions. So right now is to find that alternative perspective and keep doing what you love, but from a different angle and pursuing it in a different way, because that's certainly possible right now. And not to give up. And I think that's the most important one. You have to keep driving. So
Absolutely. And we all know that colleges are going to need these amazing kids like you. Like, can you imagine if a kid that's you, but a year younger right now is like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Do you recommend us for them to get that type of help during a crisis time?
definitely, because I think that a mentor would, sometimes you're not sure of if you want to do something or if something will work out. And sometimes you need somebody who's older than you, has a little bit more experience, but can still relate to you and knows what is best for you. Um, to tell you that, okay, that's a great idea. That's something that colleges will like because they've been through the process recently and they know what the environment is like.
Amazing. Well, Jay, I loved having you on today. I love you
Thank you.
so much. I
Thank
love the
you.
work you're doing. I think you are an incredible soul. I can't wait to see what you do in the Vagelos program at Penn and beyond. This is
Thank
just the
you.
start. This is just the start. And I'm so
It
excited
is.
to take you on that journey from high school to college, that change and shift that happens for so many
Hmm.
people. But I'm so honored to get to interview you and
Oh,
connect
thank
with
you.
you. Awesome. Well, thanks and have an awesome day, everyone.